Howdy, everybody. It's your boy Choppadong here, Razzle down below. It is MLB Monday, another week, another chance to make lots of money with DFS MLB. We'll go through the rundown here in a little bit as people pile in. Welcome. Happy to see everybody. I see Cujo's already here. Other people pop in, say hi. I'm sure that I'll answer back, or Razzle, somebody will give you the old hat tip and say what's up. I saw a winner today. This week, I saw a $650 winner. Let's go, Dixon. I saw a winner, $650 on FanDuel out of Nezzy. I saw another couple of guys, a PGA winner that almost won $100K. It seems like it was a pretty decent weekend in the Army. Razzle, how did you do?
I did not have that great of a weekend, but Sunday was profitable, but Saturday was brutal. More than brutal, I should say.
Yeah, I didn't do well on Sunday either. Saturday was fine. It was either Friday or Saturday. I don't know which one it was, but popped a couple of the boosters, and we're running right at our usual, 5 to 10% when you only need 2% cash. So we're, solid edge, just clicking along. I'll be playing those again tonight. They actually released a lot of the boosters, a 10 lineup and 2 7s. So I got like 24 lineups rolling out tonight, which is nice. It allows me to diversify a little bit more than I usually do. And then the old small one for 7 lineups on the night slate, just to go contrarian in case the main slate bombs on me. We'll see what happens. What are your basic strategies tonight? What are you playing? I assume you're playing the same allotment of contests you typically do.
Yeah, I'm playing a little lighter, right around 200, 220 lineups. Mostly because I just can't get a read on the 2 weather games, which I find very important tonight from a pitching standpoint. So it's so tough that I'm just kind of cutting back my play and going to make decisions probably last minute, really, on how I break down my percentages. So it is going to be a little tougher for members to get my percentage ranges. They're just going to have to hold on because I need to get as much information about those 2 weather spots as I can before I decide. I want to play pitching in Minnesota and in the St. Louis game, like badly, because if we time it right, we're looking at potential complete game bonuses for pitchers because there's a potential for those games to be over in 5, 6, 7 innings based on the weather that we're seeing.
Yep, I agree. I was going to say that when we did the pitchers. So spoiler alert, everybody. We'll do the rundown here in a minute. Let me handle a couple of these quick questions. Up top, looks like Cedric's in here too. That's cool. Dixon asks, who are the top 3 candidates for stolen bases tonight? Can you quickly pop down a couple? 3 to 5 or something that you would have kind of towards the top of your radar?
I honestly do not have any on my radar yet. It's one thing I haven't looked into yet today. I've been so focused on pitching, but I'll dig in on the side, and by the end of the show, if somebody reminds me, I will share a couple that I locate.
I have a funny feeling Dixon will remind you, just like he reminds everybody to hit the like and the subscribe button, all that good stuff. Big Rob is asking, he likes a Arizona stack for his single entry. What are your single entry stacks you'll attack? We're going to save that one for later because we're going to run through the rundown, which is typically a little bit of slate rundown. Then we'll do pitchers and we'll do hitters. We'll do some stacks, maybe some dong calls. I don't have any BVP for us today. I did not look, but I do have, a couple of interesting, not necessarily dong calls, but a couple of interesting stack options. We'll see where Razzle goes, and I might throw a goofy one at you here or there. So hold tight, Rob, and we'll get rolling here right now because we're looking at the MLB weather station here at dfsarmy.com, and we have a 9-game slate with Coors on it. Of course, we all know by now that Philly's in town out there in Denver, and that puts the onus on Philly stacks are always highly owned, et cetera, et cetera. It's interesting. Christopher Sanchez pitching out there, and what we're going to ask Razzle to tell us he's doing with that Coors pitching. But we do have some weather concerns. You can see some of the red on there. Now, I don't go a ton by the air density and all that kind of stuff. It's all right. But, the difference between a 6 and a 7 or a 7 and an 8, whatever, If it's a 9 or a 10, I pay attention. If it's a 0 or a 1, maybe I pay attention. But usually I'm looking more for the rain chances, and that's what Razzle was alluding to before with Minnesota popping in there a little bit. That's going to be last minute inside the DFS Army VIP Discord. So as always, use the code down there, MLB Live, for a 10% off discount. You can get in here now. You get in here, you're in and active, and you've got access before the slate locks for sure. But St. Louis has a 30% postpone risk, apparently, as of this morning. Now, things have changed. Models maybe have slowed down. 70% in-game delay, like we talked about, maybe a little bit rain shortened, which affects, of course, the pitching in that game as well. Usually when I see those types of numbers, I'm kind of skittish with arms. Not always bats, but skittish with arms. But then you've got the weather and the temperatures. It's 54 degrees. The wind is blowing in Coors. 54 degrees is a little bit chilly. Conversely, in Tampa and Oakland, or the old Oakland, it's in the 80s in their home games. Tampa Bay, the wind is blowing out. The Athletics, the wind is blowing out in those warm environments. Those are worth paying attention to. So I'm going to kind of let Razzle break that down before we get into starting pitchers and kind of where we're going to go with that and what you see and what you are encouraged by when it comes to the weather station tonight.
I mean, based on the weather station, the St. Louis game has a better outlook now. The Minnesota game has a much worse outlook. So the Minnesota game is the one that's more of a worry for me now when it was St. Louis to begin the day, which is frustrating because, like, the overall, if you take the rain out of the equation in Minnesota, like, it's ideal pitching weather with winds blowing straight in from center field. Two offenses that are mediocre. I know Minnesota's just got done with a huge win streak, but without Buxton and without Correa, they are super weak against left-handed pitching. So, like, I want to be all over that game, but we're going to have to wait it out. The other one, I almost wish the St. Louis game would have been rained out because we're talking about Sonny Gray taking on Detroit, and Detroit has the best record in baseball for some reason. Now that Detroit went to an opener, I don't think we can use Montero because we're not getting access to that rain-shortened complete game bonus. So I'm just hoping we get an update probably, within the last 15, 20 minutes before the slate starts. I see a lot of green on that, but it's getting eaten up by the image in the background.
Yeah, the green screen's not helping it, but you're not getting a real good look at this other than the green. This is focused on Minnesota at 7 o'clock. Minneapolis is just on the edge of the green with the green moving towards it. So timing-wise, that's kind of what things are projecting towards currently, is somewhere right at 7 o'clock on the nose. When you look down, and that's, it's a decent thickness of rain. These are models. They're not totally accurate, but it's a decent thickness, which suggests the rain might last for a little while. However, at 7 o'clock in St. Louis, the rain is still out in the center of the state. By the time it finally spins its way through, you're looking at 9:45, maybe even 10 o'clock. If it's that late, like they said, like you said, if the game is rain shortened, that's fine. But this one, if this thing continues to slow down, actually has a chance at getting all the way in as well. I don't put a lot of stock in these unless the rain and stuff is happening right now, and I'm looking at current radars. But the future radars aren't terrible when it comes to timing a couple of hours out. So obviously keep your eyes to the sky, and I might be a little bit worried about Minnesota as well. And that takes kind of Bailey Ober off the table a little bit. I don't want that one to start delayed. And he was in my pitching pool. I'm assuming he was in yours.
He is. Logan Allen on the other side of that game as well, just because of how weak the Twins lineup is going to be against left-handed pitching. I really want to play those guys. If the game is looking like it's starting on time, then I'm playing them. I'm going to gamble and hope they get to 5 to 6 innings in, we can get complete game bonuses. Like, it's a gamble, and it's won us a lot of money in the past when we get it right. If that game starts with a delay at all, I'm going to end up off of them. So hopefully we get that news in a timely manner, just because, like, the rain will just build up. And I think it's once a delay starts in that one, I think it's just very easy for them to push it off and play a doubleheader or play on Thursday. I haven't looked at the schedule, so I don't know how it would fall. But
and bear in mind,
better about St. Louis.
Bear in mind for everybody listening that this is tournament GPP type advice. If you're taking these kinds of gambles in cash games, you're playing them wrong. We don't need this for cash games. We can let people make the mistake or try to win a 100-man 50-50 when 50 of the 100 people get paid. You don't need that to get into the top 50%. Even a lot of your smaller field stuff, super small field stuff, I mean, you can take these chances, but generally speaking, you don't have to when there are other options on a larger slate. This is more, I don't know what size tournament I would say it's for, but it's for decent sized tournaments. 500 people or bigger, maybe 100 people or so or bigger. The true small field stuff, 50 people, you don't need this. But, for most of the stuff that you guys play, you probably do. How do you feel better about St. Louis? So that puts Sonny Gray back on your radar for sure.
It does. I mean, it's just annoying because it's against Detroit. Not the best of matchups, but
he got home run issues too.
But the wind's blown in with that, isn't it? I have to look again at the.
Somebody can tell us looking at the. If I look at the weather station, God, I should know to sticking my finger up in the air. Living here in St. Louis, I should be able to tell. In from right.
So, Sonny Gray, historically, with the Cardinals, has been best at home. So it is a plus spot in that regard. Prop standpoint, when I did my video this morning, is a minus 162 favorite. K prop of 5.5, juices on the over. So he actually has tied for the best K prop on the slate. So we go with them. I wish it was a little colder in St. Louis to go with that wind. That would really play up better.
Sure.
Weather station has it at 72. If it would be in the low 60s, then I'd feel really good.
I wonder what that means for game time and how that's going to affect things. Because to be honest with you, it's warmer than any 72 degrees outside right now. It's 82 here in St. Louis as of right now. Now, it may cool off. They may be thinking clouds are going to roll in. They may be thinking whatever. But if this thing is slowing down as it approaches, that temperature might not cool off as quickly as even the forecast was for this morning. So take that into consideration as well. Any other pitchers that you're kind of on that your player pool has expanded to, or any kind of a low-owned GPP guy you think can go off? Let's do that.
Logan Allen we still haven't projected, I think, at 6%.
Yeah, and by low, I mean really, really low. Not the whole, it's a 9-game slate, or we don't need to worry about ownership.
So,
I'm talking truly low.
The lowest owned projected guy that I have in my pool is Logan Allen at 6%. Second lowest is 7% for Dean Kramer. Don't really like Dean Kramer as a pitcher, but there's been profit made over the last couple weeks taking pitching against Milwaukee. They've had some struggles with majority of their lineup, and I like to just pick on teams when they're struggling. When they start going good, they're a team that's really annoying. They get on base a lot, steal bases. I'm not going to want to use pitching against them, but when struggles happen, like easy outs can happen. So I think Kramer's in play, so he's kind of the last guy in my pool. It was either he or JT Ginn as the last guy in my pool.
Okay.
I just similar to taking pitching against Colorado, I've just been taking pitching against the Angels. I know the Dodgers pitchers weren't the sharpest against the Angels, but
they were not.
the Rockies and the Angels lead baseball in strikeouts.
Right.
They keep flip flopping at the very bottom.
And they'll probably stay there most of the year too. Let's get to Cedric here really quick. He said thoughts on Houston versus Pepio. I think you covered that. He's given up home runs versus right-handed bats. I assume you agree.
Yep. Pepio is in my pool, but I did put a note. Generally with my pitchers in my notes, I don't put a lot of notes in there because I linked my video. But I did put a note next to Pepio in my cheat sheet just saying I worry about the matchup. He's a reverse splits guy against a super right-hand heavy lineup. I think Castros have just one left-handed hitter in the lineup in Victor Carantini. Everybody else is right-handed, so they are stacking right-handed batters, but to be honest, they just have a roster full of right-handed hitters anyways, especially with Yordan out.
Right. Dixon asks, how you feeling about Lodolo, Sanchez, and Bubik to get to 7 Ks tonight?
Feel pretty good about Lodolo taking on the Pirates and their weak offense. Sanchez, 7's an aggressive number. Sanchez's K-prop is 5.5, juice to the over. At least it was when I did the video. Bubic, 5.5, juice to the under. He's the one I worry about a little bit. San Francisco isn't the best of K matchups. And it seems like pitchers tend to pitch a little bit more to contact in that ballpark. I'm going to bring up some park factors here on my screen just to see. But I know, like Robbie Ray, the opposition tonight, his K rate is lower at home because he does, and his walk rate is lower. So that's telling me that they're pitching to contact more in that ballpark. So I do worry about that. And yeah, this season alone, Oracle Park in San Francisco is the 4th lowest K ballpark in baseball.
It's interesting. And with that, if I made that call, he'd probably go off for 10 Ks tonight. But since you made that call, it'll probably be all right.
He could probably still do it, but
that'd be pretty
just for the longest time we got used to Oakland and their ballpark having such a huge fall territory that it eliminated Ks because of that. That we started to look more into ballpark strikeout rates because we know that pitching game plans differ from start to start based on the ballpark they're pitching at. So if they're allowing, they're pitching to more contact. Some of it could be team based. San Francisco might not strike out as much, etc. But when you look at a guy on the other side like Robbie Ray, where he's a guy that can walk a ton of batters, but yet his walk rate plummets when he's at home. That just tells me he's kind of not trying to be perfect and just letting them get themselves out.
Heaving them up there and using the park to his advantage.
Yeah.
Let's get to Ken, then we'll get to Don here really quick. Ken asks, Gray or Ober, if you're risking only one weather guy, who's your favorite pick? Who's the safest? Probably Gray at this point, right?
It's probably Gray. If you told me both games play 7 innings, I think I'm going to take Ober. But I don't know that that's a guarantee right now. I love the wind blowing straight in from center over blowing in from right. It affects things a bit more.
I don't know if you heard that, but that sounds like another perfect opportunity to plug becoming a DFS Army VIP. Get that information last minute, right?
It's true.
We're on it. We're on it.
This is one of those slates where everything's going to be super last minute for me, which can be frustrating. Thankfully, I'm not running 600 lineups because trying to run DS multiple times, copy, paste, upload is a little more stressful when you're at that many.
Absolutely. I will. We'll do Don's quick question here. He's thinking about Philadelphia pitcher, 4 strikeouts and over for 4. Thinking about Philly for 4. Does that mean he's getting props at 4 or 3? Wanted to ask you guys that question.
Those are super low prop numbers that,
if that's the case, yeah.
I mean, I would jump on them at that, right? Like Ober opened up at 4.5 with juice on the over. And like I mentioned with Sanchez, he opened up at 5.5 juice to the over. And Sanchez is taking on the team that right now is striking out the most in baseball.
Hey, Don, clarify if we're getting that wrong and we're not talking about props. Clarify for us so we can answer your question correctly, because I'd hate to be wrong about that. But yeah, I mean, if those are low props, I mean, shoot, those are really low.
Yeah.
There was something that I was going to say before that, and I just shot right out of my head. So let's move on to the leverage stacks page and the hitting stacks, and let's see where we go with this one. Because if I just arrange them as usual by leverage rank, you can see LA, Philly, Athletics, Arizona, Angels, all kind of up at the top. And when I had them this morning, ranked by ownership, it was a little bit different. Philly, Seattle, Tampa, LA, Arizona, Baltimore creeping in there. LA falls out of the ranks a little bit, so that would be why they might be generating some leverage. There was other stuff. I like to kind of sort by average projected points sometimes, take a look at who's out of place, like whose lineup maybe has some depth barring pitching matchups, and kind of runs a little higher than usual. LA is always going to be up there. Philly and Coors always going to be up there. Arizona's been up there. Detroit is up there now. They weren't obviously first week of April. Seattle, Athletics. St. Louis has been up there, but St. Louis is down half a run across the board, so maybe somebody's still tuning in. I don't know. But these types of things, when they coincide with ownership, like I'd look at Detroit at 15% ownership. Nobody's taking on Sonny Gray for whatever reason. Probably should, with some of the ISO and the slug those guys have. And I mean, I know park factors and all that, but if Sonny Gray gets the ball up in the zone a little bit or whatever, I think part of that might be weather concern, and that number might be shifting as well. But that surprises me. I don't know. What do you see in these pages, or what do you see ownership, leverage? Where might you be taking some? And is there anybody in there that we've kind of outside of the top 5 that you really think slipped way, way, way too far?
I mean, I think Oakland, well, the Athletics, not Oakland, but
Sure.
I think the Athletics should be more popular.
I would agree with that.
Soriano just allowing a ton of base runners. Big innings happen with a lot of guys on base. That ballpark is great for right-handed batters. Left-handed batters actually haven't been that great in that ballpark, surprisingly. The other day I was looking at some ballpark factors. And it actually so far has played as one of the worst parks for left-handed batters, which is weird. But just seeing them down that far, considering they're down next to Kansas City, who's playing in San Francisco, Minnesota, who's playing in a game with the wind blowing straight in from center field.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually play the White Sox over Detroit tonight.
Okay.
I think White Sox are a fine mini stack. I'm not a huge believer in Luis Castillo. I'm playing Luis Castillo because he is facing the White Sox, but he just hasn't been striking enough guys out. And a couple of the White Sox bats have been swinging it pretty well. So I would rather go there than Detroit. But yeah,
is Castillo chalky enough? Is Castillo chalky enough that you get a little bit of leverage out of that? I mean, you're going to get leverage because nobody plays Chicago, but
I mean, I'm showing that he's probably the 3rd or 4th highest owned pitcher on the slate, which would jump if we were to lose either Gray or Ober, because they're basically the top 4 are basically Sanchez, Gray, Ober, and Castillo.
Good point. That would generate even more leverage for Chicago.
So yeah, I mean, if we lose one of those games for whatever reason, then Castillo would get a ton. Would get a jump. I shouldn't say a ton, just because he's more expensive than all those other guys. So that makes a difference too. But yeah, I would expect him to get a jump. If we lost one of them, I would expect like Ryan Pepiot to get a jump, and maybe even Bubic and Ray, who are just much more expensive. But yeah, I just don't love Castillo. He projects well, but I just don't think he's the same pitcher he's been in the past. And he's just not striking enough guys out. Contact. So yeah, it's tough to rely on him. I mean, I am because of this particular slate. If there was no weather involved from a rain standpoint, I would have no problem fading Castillo and just put all of my Castillo exposure into Gray, Ober, and Sanchez to go really overweight. But we don't have that option yet.
Let's ask this question: Philly in Coors and LA Dodgers. Those are the two top leverage stacks tonight. Is that because of price? Mostly, and it's very, very hard to put anything around them if you take a 5-man stack. And if that's the case, would you then maybe do a 4-man stack and a 3-man mini stack or something to kind of get some of those bats in there if you really wanted to?
I mean, like I almost never play 4-3 on DraftKings. I think it's one of the worst performing combinations based on our past research. I mean, LA being number one makes a ton of sense because like their total ownership is only at 56%. Pretty low for a 9-man lineup to average 6% per guy.
Is that matchup or is that expense?
It could be expense wise. I don't think it. I'm not really sure, to be honest. Like the Dodgers should be just more popular than that.
I would think,
especially because like all the pitcher ownership isn't in Ray and Bubic at the top. The pitcher ownership is all in the 8 to 9K range, so there is money available. So I'm just not really sure what's going on there. With Philadelphia, I just think it's the numbers say that they should be higher owned. Like they're 104%, so they're the highest total ownership, but they're number 2 in the leverage rank. Like it's just all the numbers say that they should be much more popular than.
For sure. That's really interesting.
So 11.5% per guy.
Whereas early in the morning, when I kind of looked at that and I saw 54 degrees wind blowing in out in Coors, this might be a really, really good chance to get off of Philadelphia for a game and take that chance because, first game in, whatever, all these little theories. I know it's Colorado, but ownership being what it usually should be out there for a visiting team, especially a popular visiting team, that should just be an easy fade call. But then when I saw them, number 1 or 2 on the leverage stacks sheet, I was kind of like, God, weather be damned, I might just play them. What are you doing with them? Are you like going overweight what you think field should be, or are you fading them still?
I mean,
or do you not want to say?
they're a top tier team for me. So like, if all right, like I've never tried to work out these numbers, but if we're looking at Philadelphia and we're averaging it out to 11.5% per player at the 104%, we know that's not going to be the case because like Castellanos is going to be much higher owned than Alec Bohm. And based on those percentages, we have to cut off some of them because a lot of some of that is just played as one-offs, right? So like, what do we think their full 5-man stack percentage is? Is it 7%? Is it 6%? I don't know. Is it 8%? So, but based on those numbers, my tier 1 stacks are generally between 12 and 16% stacks in my runs, so I should be overweight based on that. As long as there's some accuracy to our projected ownerships. Well,
in some days better than others. They're generally in the ballpark though. So let's Arizona, how do you feel about them?
They are a tier 2 stack for me. I obviously like them. I do have a little respect for Landon Knack, but also a lot of respect for the Dodgers bullpen.
Right.
So that's kind of why they dropped down.
It's in LA too.
Yeah. So
It's not like it's in Arizona.
I mean, LA's been playing as a better offensive park than Arizona, which is weird. I think Arizona needs the roof open. I'd have to check for sure. I know it's one or the other where it's stronger for them. Open or closed, I don't remember. But yeah, I just always like Arizona. But again, yeah, that Dodger bullpen, they can shorten the game so much. Like Nat could go 4 to 5. And the Dodgers spent so much money on their bullpen that makes it really tough. They have multiple lefties in there too, which could lead to like Pavin Smith getting pinch hit for, Corbin Carroll having faced a lefty, Naylor facing a lefty, etc. So I had to, it's really I have to find small reasons to move teams where I put them.
Sure.
I also don't like to have a lot of tier 1 teams because that eats up so much percentage of my runs. So then I have to get creative the rest of the way.
Where do you sit on Seattle?
Seattle's a tier 3 team.
Okay, so way down.
Way down. I think overall that offense for Seattle has kind of come back down to earth. And it's cold in Chicago, not the best spot. Obviously, they have been really good on the road for much of the season, but I think I can just get my exposure to Seattle with some one-off ownership with like Cal Raleigh, Rowdy Tellez, who I know is going to pop in the DS because
he always does.
Yeah, but they're still in my top 12, but they're tier 3.
Okay, let's hit some of these questions again because I know some of those piled in. If I can find it. Oh, Hangry Dana says they just subscribed. Now that is what is up. Love it. Don mentioned that the weather he thought would be a problem for Ober. It is obviously covered. For an MLB contest with 98 entrants, Anders asks, do you play that as cash or with a pivot or two? It's not about the entrance. It's not about the contestants, Anders. It's about the pay structure. If it's top heavy and you make more money as you climb the leaderboard, it's generally a GPP or a tournament, and you're trying to win the thing. You don't care about min cashing. You don't care. You're just trying to win the damn thing. And the larger that field, the more you're going to get. Try to be perfect with everything in your lineup, even if it requires getting a little bit kooky from time to time. You're really trying to make sure that everything that you do is right. Now, if the 98 players, if 45 or 50 of those guys are getting paid and they're only turning $1 into $2, there's no reason to win it. You're just getting the money. So you should really shift from getting kooky and trying to win and trying to be perfect. You shift to what's predictable, what is safer, what has that higher floor. Who are those players that steal bases, that get on base a ton? Not necessarily chasing home runs, but just, those help, don't get me wrong. But you're really trying to take those high floor pitchers that are in real good matchups without weather concerns. Coors Field becomes a popularity contest. When you look at ownership projections, sometimes those high owned guys really, really stand out as really good guys. But that's when like a Luis Arias comes into play out in San Diego, who's just a high contact, high average type of hitter sometimes, because the guy's just not going to get you 0 points. That's where you're going to build those lineups from. So it really, to answer the question, it's more about the pay structure than it is about the number of players in that contest, if that makes sense. I hope that helps. Tattoo said he kind of answered it with chalky and stuff, so that's a good thing. Dana asks, if we ever do a DFS Army meet and greet, we'll Razzle do a bong rip. That's Tattoo territory, but I don't know. Razzle, would you?
That's not my department at all.
Mine either. I'm a beer guy. I don't do a whole bunch of the smoking of the devil's lettuce. But let's see, going hard on the weekend. Davis Martin shots. Ken asks, any Davis Martin shots?
No. Just because I don't feel the greatest about Seattle doesn't mean I want to jam in Davis Martin at all.
Ooh. in a category league, I'm guessing like a rotisserie type of league, would you prefer Ellie De La Cruz or Jose Ramirez? I don't know if that's tonight or if that's overall or what.
I think it has to be Jose Ramirez.
That's where I would go.
Ellie, you're looking for excitement. I think he's better for a points style league than category, because a lot of category leagues have K's involved or OBP becomes a big piece, etc. And J-Ram is just so strong there. J-Ram's going to get you stolen bases, nowhere near what Ellie does, but he's going to basically be a 25-25 guy for years. Might even be 30-30 again. And yeah, I think J-Ram's just the way to go for multiple categories.
I think Ramirez is one of the most underrated players in all of MLB. Just top to bottom, well-roundedness. The guy just doesn't get mentioned early enough in conversations. In my opinion, he's kind of forgotten out there in Cleveland. He usually gets mentioned, somebody will list 5 or 6 players before him, and then they'll pop him off. But, I think he should be even a little higher than that. That's just me. But, yeah, he's definitely where I would go. Let's see if we can get any other questions in here. Wacky bong call on Michael Conforto. Let's do your dong calls. I'm going to let you do those. I don't really have anything tonight other than, a lot of your standard stuff. I don't have anything funky popping out at me.
Yeah, I haven't made any official dong calls yet. Gut call was Yandy Diaz. It's been pretty bad against left-handed pitching, but 4 of his 7 hits against left-handed pitchers this year have gone for extra bases. I believe 3 of those 4 are home runs. I'm thinking probably a Jordan Beck home run, even though I love Christopher Sanchez quite a bit. And then Brent Rooker as well.
Kind of
3 calls. Right-handed bats in Sacramento.
Okay. Yeah, not bad. I'll tell you what, we've got a lot of last-minute stuff to get to for the VIPs. So to be honest with you tonight, I kind of want to cut it a little bit here at 10 after. We're about 10 minutes over anyway. So let's turn it over to the VIPs in the chat, and let's call it a day. Let everybody else start working on their lineups and getting things out, kind of watch that weather and all that good stuff. And good luck to everybody. Razzle, do you have any final thoughts, anything you want to share?
Going back to the stolen base discussion, it's actually a really bad main slate for stolen bases. But let me bring up on the main slate of games, Kansas City elite stolen base spot against Robbie Ray. So Bobby Witt, Michael Garcia, 2 of my favorites there. But the Cubs should run all day on Edward Cabrera and the Miami Marlins. I believe they've given up the most stolen bases on the season. So Nico Horner, PCA. Nico Horner is actually my favorite one. I think you get better odds for a little better return than with PCA. And then also Cincinnati. So TJ Friedel and Ellie against Mitch Keller are in a pretty good spot for stolen bases. But yeah, aside from those spots, there's a lot of pitchers that are not allowing a ton of stolen bases so far this season.
There you have it. There you have it, and there you are. That's probably a wrap for us today. Razzle, thank you. Thank you guys for all the questions. Like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Don't forget the MLB Live. Welcome in, Hangry Dana. Hopefully you get that Discord link and you can get yourself in there, start asking Razzle some pre-lock questions as he's going, and the other coaches and whatnot as well. And for that, we'll see you all tomorrow, eh? Have a good night. And for me and Razzle and DFS Army, we appreciate all the attendance. We'll see you 5:30 Eastern tomorrow.
Tomorrow it is.